Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
All through the Old Testament, the Lord tests people, not so that He will know their hearts, because He already does, but to build their faith, to help them know that they can trust Him without a doubt. The psalmist even writes the Lord to test him. Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. Try my mind and my heart. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. But there's a few places that God invites His people to test Him. One of the more well-known ones is Malachi 3:10, which says, "Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven and pour out for you such a blessing that there will not be room enough to receive it." I like how our hymn today, "Trust, Try, and Prove Me," defines our tithes not as just money, but as talents, time, and love. Oh, what God can do with a willing heart. The second verse invites us to trust, try, and prove Him in other situations, like when our faith is unsteady, when we aren't sure what He's doing, when we can't feel Him with us. He promises a blessing. Maybe not right away, but exactly when we need it. People read about Gideon laying out the fleece, and they say, why did he need to ask for a sign from God? The Lord told him he'd do it. He shouldn't need more than that. Yet Gideon asked God to make dew on the fleece only, and then the next day to have dew everywhere but the fleece. Gideon himself was afraid that God would get mad at him for asking, but we don't see where God even chastised him for it. I personally can understand why Gideon tested God in that way. He was just so amazed and in disbelief that God could use a fearful nothing like him, the least in his father's house, from the weakest clan. After all, God had greeted him by calling him mighty man of valor, and he knew he certainly wasn't that. He wanted to make sure that God was getting the right guy. Once he was sure, he could confidently step out in faith. Hezekiah asked for a sign too, and God didn't chastise him for it. When he was on his deathbed, God had sent Isaiah to tell him to set his house in order. Hezekiah prayed and wept, and God gave him 15 more years to live. But Hezekiah asked for a sign. The Lord didn't tell Isaiah to say, "You've got to be kidding. After all I've done for you, you don't think I can do this?" No, God gave him a choice of a sign. Which way do you want the shadow and the sundial to move? Years before, Isaiah had offered King Ahaz, Hezekiah's father, a sign. Ahaz refused to believe in the Lord, even though his father and grandfather had followed him. Instead, Ahaz followed the ways of the kings of Israel, worshipping Baal, sacrificing his children, and setting up altars to false gods everywhere. He even took the gods of the places he conquered and worshipped them as if they could do him any good. He made a mess of the kingdom of Judah and turned away from the Lord. Yet God reached out to him. When Syria and Israel ganged up on him, Ahaz was scared. He knew his army was no match for them. God sent Isaiah to reassure Ahaz. He said, "Don't be afraid. I'm not going to let these guys defeat you. In fact, ask for a sign to prove I'm telling the truth. Anything." But Ahaz declared, "I will not ask, nor will I test the Lord." Now, he may have sounded pious, but he just wasn't trusting God. He refused to even see if God would do what he said. So Isaiah told him, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel." You remember that verse, don't you? It was a prophecy for then, but also for later, when Ahaz wouldn't be around to see it. A child would be born then, and while he was very young, both of the nations threatening Judah would be completely dissolved, and that happened. So am I saying when you are not sure about something, ask for a sign? No, not necessarily. But I'm saying that God wants us to trust Him. He invites us to put our faith in Him and see what He'll do with it, whether it's our money or time or talents or whatever. Give Him opportunities to show you who He is. Trust Him, try Him, prove Him by obeying Him. And if you need a sign, He'll give it to you.
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes at our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.